My name is Rahul Mitra, and I am a professor at Wayne State University. Today we're going to be talking a little bit about the discipline of organizational communication and some of the major theories in the field, and how my own research really sort of cuts across some of these theories, makes use of them, and how that work is situated in the field. Organizational communication really began as this study of how people communicate within organizations, right? That still stands true for most of the research that's being done in the field right now. The word organization itself, I think, is really important because it's not just a corporation, it's not just a nonprofit, but it's really all sorts of different organizations. It could be government agencies, it could be more informal organizations, it could be more informal groups or communities. So one of the key ways that organizational communication researchers, I think, make a contribution is to sort of explore the limits of what that word organization really means. Related to that is another core idea of the discipline, that it's not just that we're studying organizations, but we are studying the very process of organization, right? Or the actions of organizing. And so that, for me, is really what the discipline of organizational communication is. How does organization and organizing occur? Through communication. What are some of the major theories that are really driving a lot of interesting and exciting work in the field, that are especially essential for me? Personally, I tend to identify as what's called a critical interpretive scholar of organizational communication. I primarily make use of three main theories over there. The first one really is more like a family of theories, and that really looks at understanding how power and resistance really occur within organizing and organizations. For instance, this means how do some authorities or some actors within organizations exercise power over others, at the same time understanding that some less powerful actors within organizations might also have the power to resist these dominant understandings. Critical theory or critical perceptions of organizing become really important to my work. And so I draw from Dennis Mumby's work, which of course goes back to Michel Foucault's research on power and resistance, Antonio Gramsci's work really on hegemony, which is really all about how particular ways of being and acting or within organizations or elsewhere seem so natural to us that we naturally just submit ourselves to those practices of organizing. So that's one. A second really important theory for me, at least, is again, this one also is a family of theories. It's called the communication constitutes organization theory, and or CCO. And CCO again really has different families or different strains of the theory. At its core, CCO is really all about how the communication that is taking place in organizations or among organizational actors is not just instrumental, it's not just to pass messages from person A to person B, but in doing that, the message itself creates the organization. It constitutes the organization. It constitutes what the goals and the mission and the practices within the organization are supposed to be. So communication becomes not just a handmaiden really of the organizing or organization, but in many ways communication becomes central to organizing. The third theory for me is structuration. Structuration is a single theory, right? It's not a family of theories like the others, but it's often what we call a meta theory, which means it's such a broad framework that it really can be applied to a lot of different contexts of organizations and organizational practices. And again, at its core, structuration is really about understanding that the structures that we see around us, right? Not only the material elements of an organization, be they buildings or machinery or technology, but also structures such as policies and white papers and memos and emails and all of these less tangible things. They're also structures, right? And all of these structures are important in shaping what we do within an organization and what the organization itself is able to do. But that's only part of the story, because the other part of the story is that word do. So, or the actions involved. And so along with structure, you've also got action, or what we call in the theory, really agency, the agency of the individuals and the groups within the organization or within this broader society to really make use of the structure. So structuration almost makes use of this yin and yang concept of the structure and action, where, what an organization does or what an organization is able to do depends not just only on the structures at stake or the agency or the actions that individual people can take, but really a combination of these two forces. So, like I said, yin and yang. So, where does my research fit in with all of this stuff that I just pointed out? Personally, I tend to do a lot of work on business ethics and corporate social responsibility, and how organizations understand their place really within the broader environment. And when I say the broader environment, I'm not only talking about the community around them, broader society, but literally the environment. And so this is where my work, my more recent work on environmental organizing comes in. When we think about how different nonprofit groups, grassroots organizations, and community groups organize around environmental justice issues, for instance, or safeguarding their natural resources. So that's kind of the stuff that I tend to look at through the lens that I mentioned earlier, either a power resistance lens or a structuration lens or a CCO lens. And sometimes, there are other theories as well that do enter the fray. So that's kind of what I tend to look at. What I would like you to know is that this is definitely sort of at the we're really pushing the field of organizational communication, those who are doing this work on environmental organizing right now, because traditionally the field of OrgComm was really focused on, corporations, really more for-profit corporations. And it tended to really look at what's happening within those organizations and not necessarily so much connect what's happening within those organizations with really the broader environment and ecology at stake. And so my work and the work of so many others who are starting to do this kind of work is really trying to push those boundaries. And so we draw from different fields such as environmental engineering, environmental studies, humanities, sociology, political science, natural resource management, and many others in sort of trying to push the limits of what it means to organize in a sustainable fashion. And of course, the word sustainability over here means that you have to take into account both, human society as well as the broader environment. So going forward, I see really exciting times for the future of organizational communication. Not only because I see so many people doing this kind of work in environmental organizing, but I see so many other people trying to push the boundaries of the discipline and really extend it in different ways. And that's really how a discipline is healthy, and it is going to be healthy for the duration of time going forward. It doesn't stay static. You always have scholars and students such as yourselves who are trying to understand what does it really mean to organize in this situation. I'll give you an example. I'm actually just so it is April 2020 right now, the time that I'm filming this, and the coronavirus crisis is happening all over. And I'm located in Detroit, Michigan, where the coronavirus has been particularly harmful. And just this week, I'm part of a group of scholars who are writing this really amazing essay that we are trying to push about how coronavirus has affected not only our society and how in terms of how we live, but also in terms of how we work. And in terms of how we organize in order to continue to live and to survive and to become more resilient. So arguably coronavirus has really already drastically altered the way we work and do things. And now the challenge is for us as the next generation of students and scholars is to try to understand not only what's happening, but how we can organize as a society to be much more socially just, environmentally responsible, and really provide much more and much better in terms of quality of life and health for the people, for our neighbors, for our communities, and the people really around us. So I see very exciting times for organizational communication. I see, and I hope that to see further the more instances where OrgComm researchers and scholars are really connecting what is happening within organizations with really what's happening outside, and really trying to really think of not just organizations as self-contained little units, but they try to identify and theorize and understand really better how organizing is happening really around us in the broader world, and how we can really help along that process to be more socially just and responsible. So that's it from me. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen to me, and live long and prosper and take care. Stay safe, stay home.